Most people try to be liked. They adjust their personality. They overgive. They respond instantly. They tolerate disrespect. And then they wonder why no one fears losing them. Here's the brutal truth: people do not fear losing what is always available. They fear losing what has weight. Machiavelli understood something most people refuse to accept. Affection does not create security. Value does. If someone believes they can replace you easily, they will never fear losing you. And if they never fear losing you, and if they never fear losing you, they will never respect you fully. This does not mean you become cruel. It means you become scarce. Scarcity creates psychological tension. Availability removes it. The first rule is simple: stop performing for approval. The moment you seek validation, you surrender leverage. Machiavelli wrote that it is safer to be feared than loved if one cannot be both. Most people misunderstand this. He did not mean terror. He meant consequence. If losing you carries no consequence, your presence carries no power. So ask yourself, what changes in someone's life if you leave? If the answer is nothing significant, then you have no leverage. Leverage is created through competence, emotional control, and independence, not through neediness. Most people try to secure relationships through reassurance. Powerful individuals secure relationships through positioning. Positioning means this: you are valuable beyond emotion. You bring stability, opportunity, insight, protection, access. When your presence improves someone's status, clarity, or growth, your absence becomes dangerous. People fear losing advantage more than affection. This is psychological reality. Now understand something deeper. Fear of loss only appears when replacement feels difficult. If you are common, you are replaceable. If you are rare, you are protected. Rarity does not mean being dramatic. It means being dematic. It means being disciplined. Disciplined in your reactions. Disciplined in your standards. Disciplined in your time. When you tolerate everything, you communicate weakness. When you enforce standards calmly, you communicate authority. Authority creates fear of loss, not loud authority. Quiet authority. The kind that does not argue. The kind that withdraws. Withdrawal is power. If someone disrespects you and you continue engaging normally, you teach them that disrespect has no cost. If someone crosses a line and your energy shifts, calmly, clearly, they feel instability. Humans fear instability, especially when the source of stability is you. Most people panic at the idea of pulling back. They fear being forgotten. But chasing attention reduces value. Detachment increases it. Machiavelli observed that rulers who were too generous lost authority. Why? Because generosity without boundaries creates dependency without respect. The same applies socially. If you overextend constantly, people grow comfortable. Comfort reduces urgency. Urgency creates fear of loss. Now, this does not mean manipulation. It means controlled presence. Be warm but not desperate. Be kind but not compliant. Be present but not predictable. Predictability without strength breeds complacency. The second principle is emotional control. Nothing reduces fear of losing you faster than emotional instability. If someone can provoke you easily, you become manageable. Manageable people are not feared. They are controlled. Powerful presence requires composure, silence under provocation, calm under tension, stillness under pressure. When you do not react impulsively, others feel uncertain. Uncertainty increases respect. Respect increases caution. Caution increases fear of loss. Now understand this clearly. You cannot make someone fear losing you if you fear losing them more. Neediness destroys leverage instantly. If your identity collapses without someone's approval, you are not positioned, you are dependent, and dependency invites control. Machiavelli warned rulers never to rely fully on the loyalty of others. You must be self-sufficient. In relationships, friendships, business, the principle is identical. If you have alternatives, you negotiate differently. If you have options, you speak differently. If you have independence, you behave differently. And people sense that immediately. The moment someone realizes you can walk away without collapsing, their psychology shifts. Because now they are not your only source of validation. You are choosing them. Choice creates dignity. Dignity creates power. And power creates fear of loss. People only fear losing what feels limited. If your attention is unlimited, it becomes ordinary. If your time is unlimited, it becomes cheap. If your energy is unlimited, it becomes expected. Machiavelli understood that abundance without control weakens authority. Rulers who gave too freely reduced their own weight. The same principle applies socially. If you are always available, always responsive, always accommodating, you remove urgency from your presence. Urgency creates value. Scarcity creates urgency. This does not mean playing childish games. It means protecting access to yourself. Access must feel earned, not automatic. Most people make one fatal mistake. They over-communicate when anxious. They text more, they explain more, they justify more. This lowers their perceived status instantly. The more you explain your value, the less it is believed. Value should be experienced, not advertised. Silence is powerful when it is controlled. If someone pulls back and you immediately chase, you confirm dependence. If someone pulls back and you remain composed, you introduce doubt. Doubt is psychological pressure. Pressure creates reflection. Reflection creates fear of loss. But silence must not be emotional punishment. It must be natural detachment. If your silence feels manipulative, it loses strength. If your silence feels self-contained, it increases mystery. Mystery increases perceived depth. Perceived depth increases attachment. Now consider something subtle. Distance resets perception. When people see you constantly, they adapt. Your strengths become normal. Your effort becomes invisible. But when you step back slightly, your absence creates contrast. Contrast reminds them of your value. Machiavelli wrote that rulers must avoid being too familiar with subjects. Familiarity reduces awe. In relationships, familiarity without respect reduces fear of loss. Strategic distance is not withdrawal. It is recalibration. You reduce overexposure. You limit unnecessary availability. You redirect focus toward your own growth. Growth is attractive. Busy people with purpose are rarely taken lightly. Idle people are easily replaced. When your time is structured, your presence becomes selective. Selective presence creates priority. Priority creates attachment. Another principle, unpredictability within stability. If you are emotionally unstable, you lose respect. But if you are predictable in patterns, people grow complacent. The key is this: stable character, unpredictable access. Your values do not change. Your standards do not change. But your availability is not constant. When someone does not fully control access to you, they feel subtle tension. Tension creates awareness. Awareness creates appreciation. Now we move to something deeper. You must become difficult to replicate. If someone can replace you with anyone who behaves similarly, you have no strategic position. What makes you irreplaceable? Unique competence, unique perspective, unique emotional strength. Develop qualities that are rare. Emotional regulation, strategic thinking, discretion. Most people talk too much. If you become the person who speaks less and listens more, you gain power. Information flows toward the silent. Information creates leverage. Leverage creates value, and value creates fear of loss. Another critical factor is boundaries. Boundaries are not loud. They are consistent. If someone crosses a line and you tolerate it repeatedly, you train them to devalue you. If someone crosses a line and you calmly reduce access, you communicate consequence. Consequence creates caution. Caution creates respect. Respect creates fear of loss. But consequence must be proportional. Explosive reactions destroy authority. Calm withdrawal increases it. Now understand something important. Fear of loss grows when someone sees your trajectory rising. If you are stagnant, there is no urgency. If you are improving visibly, socially, financially, intellectually, your value feels dynamic. Dynamic value feels scarce. Scarce value feels protectable. People protect what appreciates. They neglect what depreciates. So focus less on controlling others. Focus more on increasing your upward momentum. When someone sees you becoming stronger, more connected, more composed, more capable, they subconsciously calculate risk. If I lose this person now, they may never be available at this level again. That calculation creates fear, and fear changes behavior. But do not announce growth. Show it through shifts, more discipline, more clarity, less tolerance for nonsense, less emotional volatility. Growth should feel observed, not advertised. Now let's address attachment. If you cling to outcomes, you weaken your frame. If you need reassurance constantly, you signal insecurity. Machiavelli warned against appearing weak in front of those you wish to influence. Emotional dependency is weakness. Strength does not mean coldness. It means self-sufficiency. If someone knows you have a full life beyond them, purpose, ambition, alliances, they cannot assume dominance. Dominance creates complacency. Equality creates tension. Tension creates respect. And respect mixed with uncertainty produces fear of loss. Now consider power dynamics. Who invests more energy often holds less leverage. If you initiate every interaction, you reduce mystery. If you wait strategically and respond selectively, you increase it. Initiation should not feel one-sided. Balance preserves value. Imbalance creates hierarchy, and if you sit at the bottom of hierarchy, you are replaceable. So recalibrate effort. Match investment. Do not exceed it. Overinvestment feels desperate. Measure investment feels disparate. Measured investment feels deliberate. Deliberate people are not easily dismissed, and dismissal is what you are preventing. Fear of losing you does not come from threats. It comes from realization that your absence would create a vacuum. Your stability removed. Your insight gone, your calm no longer present, your opportunities unavailable. When your presence becomes structural, not emotional, fear of loss becomes natural. Fear of losing you is not created through emotion. It is created through structure. Emotion fades. Structure remains. If someone is attached to you only emotionally, they can detach emotionally. But if their stability, growth, or advantage is partially tied to you, detachment becomes costly. Cost creates hesitation. Hesitation creates fear of loss. Machiavelli understood this principle in politics. Rulers maintain loyalty not just through affection, but through dependency, not unhealthy dependency. Strategic interdependence. When nobles benefited from the ruler's reign, rebellion became risky. Translate that to modern life. If someone benefits consistently from your presence, socially, intellectually, financially, strategically, losing you becomes disadvantageous. Advantage is addictive. Remove advantage, and people panic. So ask yourself, do you add measurable value to people's lives, or are you simply present? Presence alone is common. Value is rare. Value must be tangible. Clarity in chaos. Opportunity in stagnation. Calm and tension. Access to networks. Insight others miss. If you become someone who improves outcomes, you become strategic. Strategic people are protected. Now understand something critical. Powerful positioning requires emotional neutrality. If your mood fluctuates with someone's behavior, you give them control. Control reduces fear of loss. When someone can predict your reactions, they feel safe mistreating you. But when your reactions are measured and controlled, they must think before acting. Thinking creates caution. Caution increases value. Now we move into psychological leverage. Leverage comes from three factors: scarcity, competence, independence. Scarcity makes you limited. Competence makes you valuable. Independence makes you dangerous to lose. If you lack any of these three, fear weakens. Scarcity without competence is mystery without substance. Competence without scarcity becomes overused. Independence without value becomes irrelevant. Balance is power. Machiavelli emphasized perception as reality. If others perceive you as high value and difficult to control, behavior shifts automatically. You do not need to demand respect. You position for it. Now consider something subtle. Stop revealing all of yourself immediately. When people know everything about you early, curiosity dies. Curiosity maintains tension. Tension sustains interest. Interest sustains attachment. Attachment creates fear of loss. Mystery does not mean secrecy. It means depth. You reveal layers slowly. Controlled vulnerability builds connection without surrendering leverage. Oversharing destroys mystique. Mystique increases weight. Now understand timing. Immediate responses reduce perceived demand. Delayed but consistent responses increase perceived structure. You are not reactive. You are intentional. Intentional people feel stable. Stability feels rare. Rare stability feels valuable. Value creates fear of loss. Now let's address emotional discipline again. If someone threatens to leave and you panic, you lose power. If someone threatens to leave and you remain composed, you shift dynamics. Composure signals alternatives. Alternatives signal strength. Strength forces reconsideration. Most people fear silence after tension. But silence is recalibration. Silence makes people confront the possibility of absence. Absence imagined becomes more powerful than presence constant. Machiavelli observed that uncertainty can be a strategic tool. Certainty breeds complacency. Uncertainty breeds caution. Caution breeds respect. Respect mixed with emotional connection produces fear of loss. Now, something deeper. Increase your internal standards. If you tolerate low effort, low respect, low ambition, you communicate low self-worth. Self-worth shapes positioning. Positioning shapes treatment. Treatment shapes attachment. Raise standards quietly. Do not announce them. Simply enforce them. People adjust when access is threatened. If they do not adjust, they exit. And if they exit, they were not invested enough to fear losing you. That clarity protects you. Now we discuss momentum. A rising individual is psychologically harder to release. If someone sees you leveling up, in fitness, intellect, social circles, business, they sense upward trajectory. Upward trajectory increases perceived future value. Future value increases risk of loss. Losing them now means losing who they are becoming. That thought creates anxiety. Anxiety changes behavior, but growth must be real, not performative. Performative growth feels insecure. Real growth feels grounded. Grounded strength commands quiet fear. Now understand something vital. You cannot fake indifference. True leverage comes from internal abundance. If you have purpose beyond the relationship, your energy shifts. If you have ambition beyond validation, your posture shifts. If you have alliances beyond one connection, your tone shifts. Energy reveals dependency instantly. Eliminate dependency. Dependency removes fear. Independence introduces it. Finally, recognize this. You do not force someone to fear losing you. You create conditions where losing you becomes costly. Cost can be emotional. Cost can be strategic. Cost can be social. Cost can be practical. But cost must exist. If your absence produces relief instead of loss, positioning has failed. If your absence produces tension, silence, and recalculation, positioning has succeeded. Fear of losing you is not created by threats. It is created by value combined with restraint, and restraint is rare, which makes it powerful. Fear of losing you only exists when losing you changes something. If your departure creates no disruption, no shift, no vacuum, there is nothing to fear. Most people threaten to leave. Powerful individuals simply reduce presence. There is a difference. Threats are emotional. Withdrawal is structural. Machiavelli understood that punishment must be decisive and measured. Too frequent, and it loses weight. Too weak, and it invites defiance. The same applies to social power. If someone disrespects you and nothing changes, you reinforce their behavior. If someone disrespects you and you explode emotionally, you lose authority. But if someone crosses a boundary and your availability, tone, or engagement changes calmly, they feel instability. Instability triggers recalculation. Recalculation triggers awareness. Awareness triggers fear of loss. Absence has weight when presence had value. That is why the earlier principles matter. If you never build value, withdrawal feels like relief. If you build strength, clarity, opportunity, and calm, absence feels like removal of support. People rarely realize your value when it is constant. They realize it when it is gone. But disappearance must not be dramatic. No speeches, no ultimatums, no emotional theatrics. Simply redirect energy, shorter responses, less access, more focus on your own priorities. Your emotional temperature drops. You become polite but distant. Distance creates doubt. Doubt creates anxiety. Anxiety creates effort. Now understand something subtle. You must be willing to lose the person. If you are not truly prepared for separation, your withdrawal will feel fake. And people sense fakeness instantly. Power comes from genuine detachment, not from performance. Machiavelli warned that rulers who show desperation invite rebellion. The same dynamic applies personally. If you cling after disrespect, you train others to test limits. But if you calmly accept the possibility of loss, you gain leverage. Leverage does not guarantee they stay. It guarantees you are not diminished. Now we move to something deeper. The fear of losing you intensifies when others see competition, not jealousy games. Real alternatives. If your social world expands, if your network grows, if your opportunities increase, others recognize that access to you is limited. Limited access increases perceived status. Status increases attachment. Attachment increases fear of loss, but alternatives must be authentic. If you fabricate scarcity, you weaken credibility. If your growth is real, scarcity happens naturally. Now consider something powerful. Stop explaining your boundaries repeatedly. Explanation invites negotiation. Negotiation weakens enforcement. State once, enforce consistently. Silence afterwards. Consistency builds reputation. Reputation builds caution. Caution builds respect. Respect builds fear of loss. People rarely fear losing someone they dominate. They fear losing someone they cannot control. Control requires emotional hooks. Remove emotional volatility. Remove insecurity. Remove overexposure. When your inner state is stable, manipulation fails. And when manipulation fails, respect increases. Now understand this critical truth. The strongest form of influence is calm indifference to minor provocations. If someone tries to test your reaction and you remain centered, they lose leverage. If they cannot provoke you, they cannot control you. And if they cannot control you, they fear losing you. Because controlled individuals are predictable. Uncontrolled individuals are autonomous. Autonomy commands caution. Caution creates fear. Now we approach the final layer, identity. If your identity revolves around being chosen, you weaken positioning. If your identity revolves around choosing carefully, you strengthen it. Shift from seeking approval to evaluating alignment. When you evaluate others instead of chasing them, the dynamic reverses. They begin proving themselves. Proof-seeking shifts sides, and the one seeking proof holds less power. Now consider growth again. A rising person with standards, composure, and options becomes intimidating. Not through aggression, through trajectory. Trajectory signals future value. Future value signals regret potential. Will I regret losing this person later? That question is powerful. Regret is a strong psychological motivator. If someone senses they may regret underestimating you, behavior adjusts. Machiavelli understood that fear of future consequences shapes present decisions. Become someone whose future looks powerful. People protect access to future power. Finally, understand this. Fear of losing you must not be your obsession. If you obsess over creating fear, you lose authenticity. Authenticity combined with strength is irresistible. Strength without authenticity feels manipulative. Authenticity without strength feels weak. Combine both. Be real. Be disciplined. Be selective. Be capable. Be willing to walk. When someone realizes you do not need them but choose them, fear naturally appears, not fear of harm. Fear of absence, and absence, when weighted properly, is the most powerful leverage of all.